cause COVID. We've been following the money from the United States government to other laboratories around the world, including in China. And we're disturbed to discover in our recent investigation that there are still, despite what happened in Wuhan, 26 animal laboratories in China that are actively eligible to receive taxpayer funding from the NIH. And through a Freedom of Information Act investigation, we obtained documents showing that right now, the NIH and the Department of Defense are shipping tax dollars to a laboratory in China to do a test for experimental drugs on 300 beagle puppies every single week. And these documents detail how the dogs are going to be force-fed the drugs by having tubes shoved down their throats and the experimental drugs pumped into their stomachs. They're going to be injected with drugs, and they're going to be restrained and immobilized in restraint chairs so they don't move while they're undergoing experimentation. And what's the most ghoulish thing about this is that there is a line in the protocol, in the contract, that this Chinese lab signed with the U.S. government that says they're choosing beagles because they're cute and docile and easy to manipulate. So the same qualities that make these little dogs great pets are also the reason why they're being tortured in this Chinese lab.
Oh my God, that is absolutely outrageous. I mean, American taxpayer dollars are going to help fund these cruel projects, these beagle puppies. I just feel so terrible. Well, now that President Trump is back in office, how do you hope that he addresses what you guys were able to uncover?
So this is at the very top of our priority list for the newly minted Trump administration. Donald Trump famously cut the grant to the Wuhan lab a couple days after White Coat Waste and Congressman Matt Gaetz exposed the funding back in 2020. And we're hoping he's going to pick up where he left off and cut funding for dog and cat labs around the world, but also cut funding for labs in China. And we are incredibly grateful to have support. We're working with Senate Doge Chair Joni Ernst, Republican House Conference Leader Lisa McClain on legislation. In addition to hoping the president takes action, we're also hoping to get legislation passed to defund laboratories in China and other adversarial nations like Iran, like Russia, where we have found taxpayer dollars being funneled for wasteful and cruel animal experiments like these. Taxpayers should not be forced to pay for these horrendous animal experiments in hostile nations that don't have our best interest in mind, especially after what happened in Wuhan, where animal experiments caused a pandemic that killed 1 million Americans and 20 million others.
Yeah, let's touch on that, Justin. Your team with the White Coat Waste Project was the first to expose how U.S. taxpayer dollars went to fund that lab in Wuhan, which the CIA is now saying was likely the source of COVID-19 spreading across the world. In fact, as you mentioned, at the end of his last administration, President Trump cut off Dr. Fauci's grant to the Wuhan labs just days after you released your findings. Now the CIA is changing its official stance on COVID's origins in a report released last week, one of the first moves under the agency's newly sworn-in director, John Ratcliffe. So, Justin, do you expect that we'll see any more investigations into the pandemic's origins?
Absolutely. Even though Fauci's been pardoned, there's a lot of ways that we can still hold him accountable. I know Senator Rand Paul, who we work with closely on this issue, has issued 14 subpoenas to federal agencies that were involved in investigating COVID origins to see what they knew and when they knew it. And we're also working to investigate what else Fauci funded while he was still in office, because even though he's gone from government, there's billions of dollars that he greenlit to be spent in laboratories at home and abroad while he was still working in the NIH and through late 2022. So we're still hoping for some accountability. There's evidence that he lied repeatedly to Congress, to Senator Rand Paul, saying he didn't fund gain of function in Wuhan. We come to learn the NIH later admitted they absolutely did fund that gain of function in Wuhan. We got some of the emails exposing that. He also said he didn't ever use his personal email for NIH business, which is a violation of federal law. He also lied about that under oath. That's another federal crime, but the pardon's going to wipe those crimes off the books, but we could still hold him accountable, get him in front of some hearings, and actually he won't be able to plead the fifth. So hopefully we could finally get some answers from Fauci and others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It really does seem like these preemptive pardons are basically an admission of guilt that he was participating in something shady. Justin, we so appreciate the work that you do. Thanks for sharing it on our show today.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, promises made, promises kept. President Trump